Welcome back to Glycolysis on Catalyst University. My name is Kevin Tokoph. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for future videos and notifications. In this video, we're going to discuss one of the regulatory points in glycolysis, which is the activity of this enzyme, phosphofructokinase 1, PFK-1. This is the enzyme in glycolysis, it's actually number 3, that converts fructose 6-phosphate, shown right here, into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. And of course the ATP and ADP are not shown here. And in terms of being a regulatory enzyme, this enzyme PFK1 is allosterically regulated, but it's also regulated ultimately by the hormones insulin and glucagon, which we know hopefully are antagonistic hormones released by the pancreas. Now, what I have here is kind of a grand scheme, a hierarchy of the control of whether or not this enzyme PFK1 is activated, okay? And if PFK1 is activated, then we're most likely going to have glycolysis running. Okay? If this enzyme is inactive, then the reverse pathway, actually gluconeogenesis, most likely is going to be taking precedence. So ultimately, all this regulatory elements right here, this hierarchy, really controls whether or not glycolysis or gluconeogenesis comes to the forefront in metabolism. And in other words, is PFK1 active or inactive? Okay, so let's actually kind of start here at the bottom and actually backtrack up. So we're going to start simplistic, and then we'll go into all the detail shown here in the figures. So like I mentioned, we ultimately need to control which pathway is going to take place in the cell. Is it glycolysis or gluconeogenesis? And we're going to focus on glycolysis, really, but if we want glycolysis to be active, the active pathway, then the enzyme PFK1 has to be active, okay? So this enzyme needs to be active. And PFK1, phosphofructokinase 1, is going to be active when we have elevated levels of this molecule, which is actually fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. Notice it's not 1,6, it's 2,6. So this molecule, which is actually shown right here, we'll get to that later, is a different molecule than the fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, which is a metabolite in glycolysis. But if we want PFK1 to be active, we actually have to have fructose 2,6-bisphosphate, which in some ways you could think of as an allosteric regulator itself. But in order to make this fructose 2,6-bisphosphate, we have to have another enzyme active, and this enzyme is called PFK2. Again, to distinguish it from PFK1. So PFK2 is not a glycolytic enzyme, it's a regulatory enzyme, which we'll cover in a minute. And the 2 you can also think of as one of the phosphates actually is going to go on the 2 position rather than the 1. That's also another way you can think about the naming of PFK2, but it's a distinct enzyme. And so if we want this fructose 2,6-bisphosphate to be present in high amounts, we have to have PFK2 active. And what we're going to find is actually that PFK2 activity is going to be stimulated by the hormone insulin. All right, so now let's kind of backtrack the other way, starting at the highest level, hormones, down to the most specific control of the pathway. But let's actually delve into this diagram a little bit. All right, so first of all, I have here, this is actually the PFK2, and we have another enzyme that's associated with PFK2 called fructose bisphosphatase 2. Okay, fructose bisphosphatase 2. Again, there is a gluconeogenic enzyme called fructose bisphosphatase 1. Again, this 2 is part of the regulatory system. Okay, this is not the gluconeogenic enzyme. And this is actually what we call a bifunctional enzyme. Depending on the phosphorylation state of this protein, we either have the PFK2 part of it active, in which case it will perform the reaction of phosphofructokinase 2. But if this bifunctional enzyme becomes phosphorylated, then the PFK2 component becomes inactive, and instead we'll start having the activity of the fructose bisphosphatase 2. All right, so in terms of the hormones, insulin is actually going to stimulate the activity of PFK2, and this is how it does it. So insulin, through biosignaling, is going to stimulate a cytosolic enzyme called phosphoprotein phosphatase. This is simply an enzyme that removes phosphate groups from proteins that are located normally in the cytoplasm. Okay? And so we're going to start off with this bifunctional enzyme in the phosphorylated state, and so when insulin activates phosphoprotein phosphatase, this phosphate, notice right here, is going to get hydrolyzed off. Okay? Now, before that phosphate is removed, like I said, the PFK2 element is inactive while the fructose bisphosphatase 2 is active. We'll come back to that later. As soon as that phosphate becomes hydrolyzed off by this phosphatase, now we have the opposite case. We have PFK2 is active, and the fructose bisphosphatase 2 activity is now inactive. And so ultimately what insulin is going to do by doing this is, by activating PFK2, it's going to increase the concentration of fructose 2,6 bisphosphate, which is going to stimulate glycolysis and inhibit gluconeogenesis. Let's see how that actually works. Well, as soon as this phosphate gets removed under the control of insulin, we now have active phosphofructokinase 2, or PFK2. And over here, right here alongside it, this is the reaction of PFK2. We're going to start with fructose 6-phosphate. This is actually the same fructose 6-phosphate that we would find in glycolysis. However, PFK2, using the phosphate from ATP, is instead going to phosphorylate the 2 position, as you see right here. And so what that generates is this molecule, which is called fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. Now, so we've seen that if we want to activate glycolysis, we have to start with insulin. We stimulate PFK2 activity in doing so, and we increase the concentration of this fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. It turns out that the glycolytic enzyme PFK-1, so now this is actually the glycolytic reaction, this enzyme PFK-1 requires some fructose 2,6-bisphosphate to be bound to it. So this fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is going to behave as sort of an allosteric activator of PFK1. And so that's what I'm trying to show here. Once PFK2 makes fructose 2,6-bisphosphate, this molecule comes over here and is going to bind to PFK1 on a specific site, and it's going to turn on, or at least it's going to increase the activity of PFK1. And so in doing that, we activate PFK1, so we increase its activity, and that's actually going to facilitate the net activation of glycolysis. Because it turns out most of these conditions, like insulin being present among other things, are actually going to stimulate the other enzymes of glycolysis, particularly hexokinase and pyruvate kinase. Okay? So the same conditions are going to do the same thing here. But PFK1 is going to become activated, and so we're going to convert fructose 6-phosphate into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. And if you remember, then this molecule right here will then be consumed by aldolase, and we'll just continue on through glycolysis. So let's do a quick recap there, very quick. Insulin, if we have that present in high amounts in the blood, it's going to bind to receptors on the membrane of cells and stimulate phosphoprotein phosphatase, which removes the phosphate from this bifunctional enzyme. And when that phosphate's removed, that causes the PFK2 component to become active, while the fructose bisphosphatase 2 component becomes inactive. And since the PFK2 is active, fructose 6-phosphate can then be converted into fructose 2,6-bisphosphate by PFK2, as shown right here. And then this fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is going to behave as an allosteric activator. It's going to come over here and bind to PFK1, thus activating it. And this is our glycolytic reaction, the glycolytic enzyme PFK1, which converts fructose 6-phosphate into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, which will then continue through glycolysis. So this shows you how, when insulin is predominant, we have net activation of glycolysis. Okay? Now that's half the story. We can follow the same line of logic here and say, what happens if instead of insulin being present, we have glucagon that's has predominance in the blood? Okay, so glucagon is normally released under the opposite conditions. Insulin would be released when we have elevated blood glucose, and we need cells to start taking in that glucose and burning it in glycolysis. Glucagon is typically released when you have low blood sugar, and so you actually need to conserve glucose in cells and actually start making more glucose. And gluconeogenesis is how you do that, and that's going to be predominantly done in the liver. So let's see how that works. So we still have this bifunctional enzyme, but from the leftovers of insulin activity, PFK2 is active, and that's because this OH group on the bifunctional enzyme is not phosphorylated. So if we now have glucagon in the blood, glucagon by its biosignaling, increases levels of cyclic AMP, cyclic adenosine monophosphate, and this cyclic AMP is going to activate this enzyme, which is called cyclic AMP-dependent protein kinase. So it's a protein kinase, and so what it's going to do is it's going to phosphorylate target proteins. And this bifunctional enzyme will then become phosphorylated. Notice here that this OH group now gets that phosphate from the ATP under the control of glucagon and directly cyclic AMP-dependent protein kinase. And when this phosphate group gets attached to that OH group on the functional or the bifunctional enzyme, the activity reverses. And so now the PFK2 activity is going to become inactive, no more PFK2 activity, but instead we're going to have active fructose bisphosphatase 2. So this reaction over here that I showed you, PFK2, is not going to be occurring now, meaning we're not going to be generating this fructose 2,6 bisphosphate, and so there's not going to be this fructose 2,6 bisphosphate to activate this PFK1. Okay? Instead, this part of the enzyme is going to become activated. That's fructose bisphosphatase 2. Its reaction is shown right here. Now, instead of going this direction from fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 2,6 bisphosphate, this is a hydrolytic enzyme that's going to reverse it. So instead, any residual fructose 2,6 bisphosphate is going to be hydrolyzed back to fructose 6-phosphate. So the way that fructose 2,6 bisphosphate is gotten rid of, essentially, is twofold. One, you don't have the PFK2 activity, so you're no longer making fructose 2,6 bisphosphate, but by stimulating the fructose bisphosphatase 2, you're removing residual fructose 2,6 bisphosphate by converting it back to fructose 6-phosphate. And so ultimately what that's doing is, like I said, you're lowering PFK2 activity, but also stimulating the fructose bisphosphatase 2, but you're decreasing the concentration of fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. And since that fructose 2,6 bisphosphate is necessary for PFK1 activity, by diminishing the concentration in the cell of fructose 2,6 bisphosphate, you're actually decreasing the activity of PFK1, substantially actually, because in general PFK1 requires some amount of bound fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. And so if you don't have this PFK1 active at this point, then the preferred pathway is going to be the reverse. It's actually going to be gluconeogenesis that's going to take priority in a particular cell. Okay, so this interplay of the activity of this bifunctional enzyme, whether it's PFK2 activity, which stimulates glycolysis, or if we have net activity of fructose bisphosphatase 2, which stimulates gluconeogenesis, the point is whether or not you've got insulin or glucagon present, that's going to dictate which pathway, glycolysis or gluconeogenesis, that the cell is going to perform. And that's all going to be dictated by really the blood sugar. Okay, remember, insulin is released when there's elevated blood sugar. And so if there's elevated blood sugar, that sugar needs to be imported into cells and burned in glycolysis. That's the logic as to why insulin promotes glycolysis. Because if there's elevated blood glucose, you need to get rid of it, because we have to maintain blood glucose within that narrow range. So get it into cells and burn it in glycolysis. But if glucagon is released, that means that we have low blood sugar. We need to get blood sugar back up. So it doesn't make sense to burn glucose, so we need to shut off glycolysis and promote instead gluconeogenesis, right? And that's going to be predominantly done by the liver, but in addition to shutting off glycolysis to help maintain blood glucose and prevent it from falling any further, the liver is going to be manufacturing more glucose and putting it into the blood in an attempt to get blood sugar back up. And so this is just a very well-designed grand scheme in order to control very tightly the activity of fructose or phosphofructokinase 1 or PFK1, and ultimately whether or not glycolysis is active. All right, so hopefully this video made a little bit of sense to you. Hopefully you learned something, and please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for future videos and notifications. Thank you very much.